This is Mark with Trailer Sale Productions, and these are the Rigid 360 series Toyota fog light kit. In this video, we're going to be installing these fog lights and the kit into our 2015 Toyota 4Runner. The first thing we're going to do is install the pivot adapters. These snap into both sides of the fog light. The orientation of these does not really matter, as long as they can be bolted in with the provided hex screws. When installing the nylon nut, you want to make sure that it clips in from the bottom. If you're having trouble with the orientation of the light, knowing which side is up and down, turn the light around and check out the rigid emblem that is inside the light. Now we're going to run the wires through the fog light carrier. This is the biggest piece of plastic that comes with this kit. You're going to want to make sure that your nylon nut is on the same side as the larger piece of the plastic. Once you have the wire through and everything lines up, you can go ahead and snap the fog light into the carrier. Be sure to go ahead and check to make sure that the carrier is moving freely up and down with the light inside of it. Once you have the light in the carrier, now it's time to install the adjustment bolt. This is a little difficult. It does require a little bit of force to get the adjustment bolt to go into the nylon nut. My suggestion is to use the palm of your hand and push the adjustment screw into the nut. You'll want to make sure that it's snapped fully into the carrier as well. Now we can put the bezels onto the front of the light. You'll notice that the carrier has a long side and a short side, but the bezel, the long side needs to go on the long side of the carrier and the short side needs to go on the short side of the carrier. Now that we've got one light fully put together, we can go ahead and move on to the second light. Remember that you want your nylon nut and your adjustment screw and the carrier to be exact opposite of the other light, so that everything fits in uniformly into the bumper. Now that we've got the lights all put together, let's go ahead and move on to the wiring. The instructions on this are very clear and highly detailed. I would suggest that you review them once over before you go ahead and build the plugs. We're going to want to make sure that we put the orange seals, the waterproof seals, all the way down onto the wire so that they're out of the way when we're crimping the connectors on the end. The crimp connectors on the end have two pieces that will end up being crimped down on the wire. One is the insulation crimp and one is the conductor crimp. You can get a crimper for this from Home Depot or from an automotive shop. You just want to make sure that it is a crimper that has two sides to it, one for the insulation and one for the conductor piece of the wiring. Once you've put the crimps onto the end of the wiring, you're going to want to go ahead and put the plug onto those crimps. What I ended up doing was using a pair of needle nose pliers to actually pull the pin all the way through until it snapped. Lastly, we're going to take those orange seals and make sure that they're pushed all the way into the plug so that water cannot get into the plug. This is where I'm going to diverge from the instructions that were given to me by Rigid. I actually cut parts of my bumper and the wheel well lining out of my truck so that I had better off-road clearance. But once you get past this wheel well lining, the instructions are exactly the same for the stock bumper. On the outside of each fog light, there are two screws, one on the top, one on the bottom. Removing these two screws on the outside will let you take the entire fog light assembly out. The other side of the fog light assembly merely sits inside a lip in the bumper. When you're putting your new lights into the bumper, make sure that everything sits on the inside correctly so that the screw holes line up. Then add your two screws back in and go ahead and connect up your wiring. Now that you've got your Rigid 360 series fog lights installed, you can own the night.